Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca Nieves Huffman and here you're gonna find four things: food, familia, and finds, as well as fashion. I gotta say that as we approach the end of National Mentoring Month, I have been loving my interaction with my followers over on Instagram. Over there, on Sunday nights, I've been dedicating at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time is when I've been going on IG Lives where I've been taking your questions and all around career advancement, around work-life balance, around imposter syndrome, all these things that are so near and dear to my heart as far as topics as a first-generation college graduate. So I wanted to take out some time here as we wrap up this month on my YouTube channel to just talk about some key takeaways. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from followers that have really resonated for them, I just wanted to make sure I bring here as well. So let's get started. So I was getting a ton of questions around imposter syndrome, around how do you embrace vulnerability and the fear of being shamed. As the first of your family to do anything, whether it's being a college graduate or even starting a new business, it is so scary to forge a path that has never been forged for you before, and to be exposed to different topics, language, jargon that just seems completely foreign to you. I get it, that's really real. So the way I've really tackled risk-taking and as well as things like, I get questions around, how is it that you've developed into such an engaging, dynamic public speaker? And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But on the real, this is a lesson, a leadership lesson that has been a common thread throughout my life, that we tend to try to not embrace as rigorously our upbringing, the thing that makes us us, right? We think to ourselves that showing up to work, showing up in our careers as our authentic selves is probably not going to be, it's going to be frowned upon, right? But for instance, as it relates to risk-taking, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. I constantly saw them taking risks in their work. I also, as a person that grew up in the church, risk-taking is something in terms of having faith is a common thread that has really helped me just throw myself into the work, even though I probably don't know everything in terms of the language to speak, the jargon to use, the way that I position a topic as a content expert when really I'm just getting to know that content. So it's something that I really, in terms of risk taking, I don't see it as something that it's so scary for me to stop in my tracks. It's never really paralyzed me. What I do is I sit down, I do my research, I reach out to my mentors, I reach out to people that are in that field, and I'll give you a good example because I'm not a person that likes just broad topics. If I'm listening to someone talking about it, I'm like, give me specifics. How does this play out? So for instance, when I became the president and CEO of a national organization, I studied marketing. I studied public relations. I did not study how to read a balance sheet and profit and losses, liabilities and risk. Like I didn't understand that language of finance until my board chair had a side conversation with me around, hey, Rebecca, when you show up to these board meetings, you have to be able to speak the language of finance, and you have to be able to translate for the board, what does the financial health of the organization look like from that P&L statement? And first of all, I was like, what's the P&L statement? What P&L? What are you talking about? So in that situation, I really dove into researching finance. Now, in leadership, you're going to have to really embrace the fact that you might not be able to be a content expert and dive deep into one subject area. You have to know a little bit of every aspect of running a company or an organization. You have to know a little bit about accounting. You have to know a little bit about finance. You have to know a little bit about marketing. You definitely need to understand HR and people issues, and how does that play out in terms of risks and liabilities. So in terms of being thrown into a situation that feels risky, that feels unfamiliar, just throw yourself into researching, talking to mentors, asking them for guidance, asking them for quick reads, Cliff Notes version, right? I need to know just enough to be dangerous and effective in my role, but I don't need to dive into that subject to the point where I got a master's degree in that. And so you have to be comfortable with just knowing enough and not being, because sometimes especially for my perfectionists that are watching right now and listening to me, it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect and a complete content expert in that area. So as far as risk taking and how I've managed through that is just research, reach out to people that are in the know, and throw yourself into it and start learning the jargon and the language of that particular area. I have found that to be helpful. So the most important leadership lesson I've gotten in my journey is that people give to people. People give to people in terms of fundraising. As the CEO of organizations, you have to go out there and raise money. You have to bring your full self into the work. You have to let people know who you are, what you value, and align yourself with people that believe in that as well. And so in terms of fundraising, when I was first thrown into that, I was like, I don't know anything about asking people for money. And little did I know how easy it is. It really is you getting to know people, connecting with them on those points of familiarity, tapping into the thing that they're passionate about, aligning that with your organization's mission, and going in for the ask, and being unapologetic and passionate and confident in that ask. Because let me tell you something, and this goes to my second leadership lesson. You have to be confident, even when you don't feel that level of confidence. Some people say fake it till you make it. Now, I'm a pretty confident person, but when it comes into spaces where I'm like, you know what? I really got to show up, and I got to show up strong, because this is a high stakes environment. When you are at the top of that org chart, when you are the CEO, the executive of that organization, you are making decisions every single day that impact people's livelihood. And I took that responsibility very seriously. And so when I would go into those meetings where I was asking someone for $500,000 or to renew that grant over not 1 year, but 5 years, I went in there guns blazing, so to speak, saying, this is why you can't miss out on supporting this mission. This is what we're doing, and this is why we're the best at it. And so being in those spaces with confidence, because let me tell you something, leaders, this is something that an analogy I always use. If you are going into battle and somebody is at the helm and says, okay, I think this is gonna work, we're gonna give it a try, okay? Let's hope that it works. Are you gonna follow them into that war, into that battle? No, you want to follow someone that is going to be confident in the approach, that is going to say, you know what, I've got data to show that this is going to work. And this is why I'm the right leader to lead you into this next part of the journey. And so really embrace that notion that you have to show up with confidence, with your full authentic self. And that is a leadership lesson that stays with me to this day. I might not completely feel it in the moment, but then afterwards I benefit from having that approach to confidence, because I'm like, man, that really worked, and it worked really well. And I cannot believe I doubted myself. And I have found more often than not in these 20 years of being involved in education, not-for-profit leadership, that I've had more moments of that than feeling like a failure, that I tried it and I failed. And even in those failures, you learn something from it. One thing I love doing is public speaking, and I get quite a bit of feedback that I'm pretty good at it. And I have to say that the reason why I have developed into an engaging, dynamic public speaker is because of my upbringing. It's fascinating that sometimes as first generation college graduates or entrepreneurs, you say, you know what, I'm kind of ashamed of the way that I grew up, and I don't see any value in that. You know, I grew up in the hood, or whatever it is that you feel mentally is not going to prepare you for your future. Absolutely not. Dispel that thinking, because I can tell you, growing up in the church and watching public speaker, because pastors and preachers, they're pretty much public speakers. And I could tell you scenarios where I would get excited for certain pastors or preachers to preach, because I was like, these are storytellers. I knew when to engage in storytelling. I knew when to engage in call and response, engaging with the audience, making sure, hey, are you still there? Are you listening? When people are nodding their heads and really knowing, getting a cue from the crowd that I'm headed on the right track. That's the stuff that as a speaker, it keeps me in the moment, fueled and moving forward, and bringing even more energy, motivation, and inspiration into my remarks. And so really having that upbringing of sitting in the pews of a church, you would never guess would be the thing that would help prepare and plant those seeds of me being an effective public speaker, but it did. And also just a ton of practice, because it's one thing to sit in the audience and it's another to deliver the message, right? To be the speaker. And so really practicing, I had great speech teachers in college where every single time I would say, like, point off, point off, point off. So you best believe I was watching out for my fillers. But more importantly, just trying to find ways to connect with your audience. These are things that I've implemented in my practice as a public speaker, and it's something that I completely enjoy. As far as some tactical tips on how to develop as a strong public speaker, I can tell you preparation is everything. And developing an outline with your key points, an introduction, what are your 3 supporting points, sprinkling some data points to affirm you being a content expert in that area. Maybe throw in a story that's really engaging, interesting. That's what you want in the middle in your 3 points. And then of course, a strong, compelling call to action or closing. So these are the ways that you want to organize your outline. And once you do place that outline on paper, practice it. Practice it in front of the mirror. Practice it in front of your family. Hell, I've even practiced my speeches in front of my kids, and nobody's more honest and unfiltered than your kids. And they will give you feedback as well as mentors and family members if you choose to practice in front of them. Another thing, when you're actually delivering a speech, and I know that with the pandemic, but this is the good thing about the pandemic, you can practice this at home, working from home. And by the time we are able to engage and interact in the way that we used to, you're gonna be even sharper and ready to be that dynamic, engaging speaker. When you develop your outline, make sure that you use large font, that you go to the middle of the page, because guess what? When you're actually delivering that speech, you don't wanna read all the way down, and you don't wanna read at all. You just wanna do a lot of practicing, so that way by the time you have this paper in front of you, it's just a roadmap in case you get lost and have to glance at it. But what you want to do is go halfway on the page, so that way your head isn't going all the way down when you're delivering those remarks and people are just looking here at the top of your head. Nobody wants to see the top of your head. They want to see and hear what you have to say. So these are just some tips to help prepare you in being a dynamic, engaging public speaker. And my final point on that is just remember that your audience wants you to succeed. They're not sitting there thinking, let's see, let's hope she messes up. No, everyone for the most part is sitting there. They want to hear what you have to say and they want you to be successful. How many of you have sat through somebody that's fumbling and you're just sitting there and you're like, oh God, get it together, please. And you're rooting for them. People are literally rooting for you while you're delivering remarks. So just remember that and have confidence in yourself. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, do all the things. And if you're not following me on Instagram, I'm able to dive into these topics more deeply on my IG lives at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time every Sunday. So guys, I hope to see you over there. But until next time, I'm Rebecca Nieves Huffman, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hello, everyone. Okay. All right. As I keep on seeing shadows on the floor, I'm like, they're lurking outside. It reminds me of the Signs movie with Mel Gibson with the aliens. Anyways.
Don't play with me. It's getting dark and we gotta drive home.